So welcome to day two. We're going to get started with our round of talks today. So today we have Jessie Frazelle, and she's here from Docker to talk about Dockerizing all the things. Sorry, I missed the bio. Jessie works on the container runtime, right? Yes, okay. So welcome, Jessie.
Nice. So yes, I work at Docker. Along with working on the container runtime and managing the open source project with other maintainers, I run our CI infrastructure, which is actually pretty unique to Docker. We test Docker by running Docker in Docker. So there's that meme. And we have like over 50 servers, but I'll go into the details. I wrote this like blog post on it, and basically Seth was like, maybe something like that would be a good talk idea. So it will include parts from that, but then it will also include a few pain points that we ran into and funny solutions. So yeah, Docker, the hood parts. We have around 50 servers. They all have various kernel versions for testing. We test all the various graph drivers, AUFS, device mappers, EFS, everything. And then we have various Linux distros, and we even test on Windows. And that includes the new Windows TP3 server, which is like the technical preview of the 2016 server. We have those for testing, as well as Windows client servers that are hooked up to a Linux remote daemon. So that's all just like piles into a bunch of servers all being managed by me, and it's not even my full-time job. But sometimes it becomes my full-time job when shit breaks, and that's when I become an angry person. Like the irony of my blog post was that it was like tales of a part-time sysadmin, and then like 3 weeks later, everything just went into the shithole. So it was just like I jinxed it entirely. So yeah, we have 30 servers just for testing pull requests, and all 30 of these servers are identical, mostly because we don't want any of the weirdness with like a kernel version to happen on one PR and not another, and it would just be really hard to debug and go back and be like, was this on node 1? Was it on node 7? And usually the problems that we'll see will be consistent amongst all. Of course, that doesn't go for everything, but you know, computers. So yeah, here's where things get interesting. We have 3 different actual builds per PR that is like opened on Docker, the project itself. We have the experimental, which tests the daemon being run with experimental mode on, and all the integration tests that we have with that version. And then we have Windows tests, and then we have Janky, which is just like the regular Linux daemon, atypical Docker daemon from this pull request being tested against. And the DCO signed is like that thing that you have to sign when you do a pull request. If it's not signed, it won't even run the test, so the resources won't be consumed, because using up 3 different servers per PR gets very costly. It's insane. And when we have problems, because like there is a failed test on master, so literally every single PR will fail because of it, and we have to rebuild all the PRs, it takes like 5 hours for the servers to catch up. It's insane. So in the coming weeks, we're actually going to add 2 more to that, because hopefully, I'm like really working on it, we're trying to get user namespaces into Docker 1.9. And so with that, we'll have another set of integration tests that run with a remapped root. That way we'll know when something breaks, when someone pushes a PR that doesn't, that like introduces a bug into the user namespaces code. And then the second will be the Windows TP3 servers, because that actual Windows build before was with the remote daemon, but we're gonna have the integration tests working on the actual native Windows containers soon enough, and then we'll have 5 builds per PR, which is really insane. Not exactly looking forward to it, but it will be good. I mean, the more tests, the better, honestly. So yeah, our servers are basically like constantly overworked, even though we have a shit ton of them, and they need hugs. So we get around 150 pull requests per week, and this is like a lot to review. We try to review them all, but if any of you guys submit pull requests, keep this in mind, please. Because when we're being pinged constantly on a PR that was open like 5 minutes ago, we're just like, okay, chill. We will get there. So yeah, and so this adds up because when you just push the first time, it will start the builds, but then of course there's code reviews, you're pushing again, you're force pushing again, you're force pushing again. So this adds up to like over 500 builds per day. I mean, it gets even higher sometimes. This was like a rough estimate, honestly, I have no idea. But yeah, it adds up really fast. It takes 34 minutes per build, and this is when the cache has not been busted. So this is if you're not making a change to the Docker file in the project root, the only thing that will change is copying the source, obviously, into the Docker file. So that's like the last step, and it makes it a lot faster. But if the cache has been busted, it takes like frickin' forever. This is like a really long time per build. So when we have like flaky tests and we have to constantly rebuild PRs, it's such a pain in the ass. So we constantly try to fix traces and tests. It's not perfect. And as you can see, like even the screenshot before, 2 of them had failed. And this PR that I took the screenshot of, they should not have failed. So it's very iffy. And people who like make their first time contribution or something like that, like they are like, oh, I'm so confused as to why this failed, and they're like freaking out about their code, and we're like, no, it's fine. The problem with that though is you start to ignore when things fail, and then we'll miss things. So yeah, we're constantly trying to fix that. So yeah, everyone gets a cache bust. Literally all the maintainers will be in the IRC channel, and when a push to master busts their cache, they're like, what, who did it? Oh my gosh, my build is now taking forever, and it's just like really funny. So the cache is a good thing. But I love to be the person to bust the cache just because it's so funny. So yeah, kernel problems. It's just, honestly, there's so many. We have run into some really weird ones, especially with regard to networking. We'll hit things that have been fixed in like 4.1.6, and then they broke it in 4.2 again, and we're just like, what the hell? They'll also make these like huge change logs in point releases, like the minor point release. So between like 4.1.2 and like 4.1.3, there was like thousands of lines of code changed in like just namespaces, and it is very hard to bisect. So we're constantly running into things, constantly finding kernels that we can't use with tests. And the thing with like all the PR servers, there's so many of them, and we want to just be able to use like a kernel that works, but that's basically impossible, especially with the addition of like user namespaces and stuff. There's a lot of weird kernel bugs that we found, and then also found workaround for. It's yeah. So if you're like wondering why it's taken us so long with that, there are so many things that I could rant about all day, but it's ridiculous. But we're getting there. Yeah. So yeah, about the blog post, literally right after. We had this like really huge problem with the servers, and it happened right after we merged Docker Notary, which some of you might be familiar with, but they ended up using a lot of crypto rand in Golang, and we kept getting these like out of entropy like eperms, because apparently it will throw an eperm, but like dev urandom actually never runs out of entropy. There's like this whole thing. So for literally a week, I was debugging our freaking servers because we could not build anything. And when we can't test PRs, then we can't merge them. So we get them backed up. And as I said, we get 150 per week. So not being able to merge PRs means that we have like a shit ton that we have to review. So yeah, at the time of that, we were running 3.1.4, and someone suggested, we should upgrade to 3.17 because They select the syscall for random rather than just dev urandom. But really, dev urandom should never run out of entropy. That's what's so obnoxious about this. But you'll see the solution when I get to it. But yeah, so upgrading 30 servers kernels is so freaking annoying. Like there are ways to do it very fast, and like you can multiplex SSH, but still like not the most fun experience on the planet. So yeah, after like all this, I was like, this better freaking work because I just never want to have to deal with this again. So then problems are still happening, and like this is going on in our chats, and basically I wanted to like kill myself. Like we can't build anything. All the contributors are like, what the hell? Jenkins is all red. And I'm just like, oh my God, stop talking about it. Because it's just so bad. So yeah, I mean, it's just horrible. It goes on for days. Literally the worst week of my life. Everyone's like praying for me. No, just kidding. I'm super dramatic. So yeah, so then as a joke to the people of Notary, I opened this PR, which as you can see is going to use dev0 instead of dev urandom. And I was like, okay, this will fix all our problems, like joking. And this is like our security team, which like they try to like maintain that they're like really hardcore and like you can't put up with bullshit, but I mean, please. No. So like all the other maintainers at Docker are like, looks good to me. And I'm like, oh, thank God their test failed, because can you imagine if they didn't? And then we learned that Diogo does not have a sense of humor. But Nathan thought it was funny, but he didn't comment. He like chatted me separately, but still. I was like, what the fuck, Diogo? Like, just laugh. Obviously, I didn't mean it seriously. Yeah, so then it comes down to they were using a UUID generator that was also used in Docker distribution. And this is kind of small to see, but what's happening is they were logging to the client that error generating version 4 UUID retrying, and then that error would actually be like the eperm on random, but it actually retries. So the problem was not that it was out of entropy, because it will keep retrying, and that's like the whole fucking point. It was that our integration tests check like what comes back from the client. This library that they were importing was overriding what comes back from the client because it's a logger, and then it was literally in there. So I was just like so mad that it was someone's shitty code and not entropy, and I like spent all this time debugging the servers, looking at the kernel logs, like this, my entire week was spent like consumed in this, and I was just like, it's the worst. It's the worst. This is why I can't be a sysadmin. I just like don't have the patience. I don't know how people do it. Like I drank so much this week that this happened. Not this week, but yeah, maybe. So yeah, moving on. I'm still trying to let it go, clearly. There's still some pain. Yeah, so the cool thing about all this, and the whole point of the talk, but I wanted to like tell this funny story first, is we have some cool things for actually managing all this infrastructure. Granted, none of it really came in handy for that, but that was a very specific problem. So yeah, we use Consul on all the servers, and it's so great for status checks. Like I even put the Docker version of each of the servers are status checks, so I can make sure that they're all in line and they're all running master, and they run like nightly builds. The problem also with running the nightly builds of master is that if something breaks in master, then we just like fucked our entire servers. But it is a good thing because obviously we find it, but then again, all the builds will fail. We have to rebuild them all, and it just becomes like this huge pain in the ass. But in the end, it's better for us, so that's good. We also have some really cool tools that we've built in our free time. Granted, if you look at the code, the source code of these tools, it's probably pretty shitty because we wrote them really fast and just to like fulfill a need, so that's a word of warning. We use NSQ to take the webhooks from GitHub and like queue them out to various different things that build the master binaries. They release the master docs. There's like an archival system, and then even my coworker Arnaud, he just open sourced this really cool like graphing tool for things that happen on a repo, and that uses NSQ hooks as well. We're going to eventually release the cool Kafka graphs that we have for that, but we need to make a Elasticsearch cluster first. It's a long story, but it will be really cool what we do. Yeah, it basically shows that I have closed the most pull requests and not like merged closed, like been the asshole to be like, no, we don't want your code, which I thought was very funny. So I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah, so then we also have this cool IRC bot. And it will rebuild a new PR because, like I said, we have these flaky tests. They're super annoying. And it can actually also do custom builds because, as I said before, we have various Linux operating systems we're testing on, various graph drivers. We even test the old LXC backend instead of libcontainer, which honestly, if you're still using that, you should probably get off of it because it's like buggy as shit. Yeah. So there's like all different ways to rebuild. And at this point, we're actually testing not only Docker in our Jenkins. We're running the test for Compose. We're running the test for runc. We're running the test for like all the Docker sub projects. So the person they come to when shit breaks is me, which is like, we kind of need to like now get someone else in charge of this because it really isn't my job. But it is cool that like when this does work, it works really well. But when it doesn't, then it's like a single point of failure, which all lands on Docker because that's what we're using. I tried to convince them once that it was somebody else's repo, and it like turned out to be ours, and I was like, no one say anything, and we'll just let it slide. But yeah. So all this is actually documented, like if you really want to look at it in our repo, like under project tools. Like I could get into it more, but really it's just like Docker run commands, and like that's not that cool, really. But the concept behind it is. So yeah, then also what I want to show is we introduced like plugins as a concept, and then my coworker David Calavera wrote a really cool Vault plugin as a volume driver. So yeah, I can show that now. Actually, this is not it. This was my backup just in case, because you know Linux. So yeah, let's see. Cool, so I can just start the Vault server. So the plugin is this like little Go tool. And I'm just giving it like the Vault token and then the Vault server URL. And we can come over here. Okay, so by the way, I like just set this up like 5 minutes ago, so bear with me if something happens. We always have the animated GIF, GIF, whatever you call them. So yeah. Okay, so first we're going to start with a secret for a database. And wow, let's not do double nesting. Cool, we can make this one butts. By the way, I have this like systemd butts plugin, and I'm just gonna like give it a small shout out. It's for Chrome. So yeah, we've written that. So if we want to say use that in a container, we can do docker run. I like to do docker run --rm because if you haven't seen any of my other talks, I'm pretty OCD about keeping things clean. So yeah. So we're going to use the volume driver Vault that we already started, and we are going to mount a volume root to data. Root is like the default mount for the plugin. And we can just run like an Alpine image and enter in shell. So now if we want to get that secret, we can cat the file. And cool. Okay, so that's like all fine and dandy. Whatever, it works. We can do another and make another like super secret password that maybe only like 1% in the world can have the actual password for. And if we just run it again like before, we'll also be able to get this one. But I'll show that we can get it, and then so there it is. That's cool. Like, we have access to everything, which kind of sucks. Like, what's the whole point? So then I made this database policy, and if we cat it, we can see that we're not going to give access to the super secret, hence the name. So if we create a volume, I'm getting lazy. So we can create a volume with the new, also I'm running experimental Docker, Docker volume create command, and this will be not in experimental in 1.9. Sorry, random thoughts. And we can create the volume with the driver vault, name it database, and then use our policy for the volume itself. Cool, so there it is. Then if we do a docker run remove, we actually don't need to do the -- volume driver anymore. We can do this, just mount it because it's already there, and to data, and Alpine message. Then let's cat the first one. So we can see the first one because that was part of our policy. But the second one, Jesus, I hope this works. Cool, it can't open it. So I think the coolest part is the ACLs. So this way, like if you're a sysadmin and you don't trust the dev, which like who does? No, I'm just kidding. You can prevent them from using certain things, which is the whole point of an ACL. But it's great to have it like in the container. So yeah, that was basically all I had. So I'm open to questions. I probably talked really fast. Yeah, well, so I mounted it at data.
Isn't it in secret? Yeah, it's secret/super secret.
Oh, sorry. Well, that would be one why I couldn't read it, but also this one should work as well. Nice, okay. That was scary. See, that was the trick. I did the wrong path just so that it would show that it would work. Yeah, nice. Cool. You guys can like ask me anything about the project too, since I'm like a maintainer. Yeah, so actually we are, we just got a GCC Go build on our CI. So that will build for, IBM was the main contributor, so obviously it's like System Z and PowerPC. It's not like really, I don't think all the integration tests pass on those systems yet, but they're working on it. So that will be soon. And yeah, I think some other people are working on like 32-bit, but it hasn't really gone anywhere, to be honest. Yeah?
Do you now consider yourself to be an expert in the field of dev urandom?
Oh my God, no. But I wish I didn't know as much as I know about like weird shit that were added in certain kernels. Like, oh my God. And then it ended up to be someone's shitty code. Like, ah. This is probably how sysadmins feel all day when they're just like, write the query better. Because why is it using so much memory? Or, yeah, it's really rough. I was so mad. I'm pretty sure those guys were like, wow, Jessie is kind of mean. Yeah. Oh, what? What do you mean?
I've had problems like developers don't close
Oh, yeah. And then you have a bunch of file descriptors open. Oh, God, yeah. That's a bad one, too, because you have to like remember to defer things and go. And we've had ones where someone submitted a patch and they didn't actually close like the socket file after Docker was done running. So then like if you were starting all these like Dockers, you'd have a bajillion sockets like just left over. It was so bad.
How would this deal with vault paths with multiple values in the same path?
I am not actually that familiar with vaults to that extent, but is it still a file or is it something else?
I mean, for instance, it would be possible to do a vault write of, foo equals bar equals xxx at the same vault path. I'm curious to know, then if you catted the vault path, what would you see?
I mean, we could try it. So you can do like key value.
Just then push space and do foo equals bar.
Sweet. Okay, we'll have to just run a regular container. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if there's another directory.
Or could we try to write without because the value equals the default, just to test we like foo equals bar.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Second value without using value.
Jesus. Where is the secret? Oh, maybe it's... Yeah, you know what? We could open a bug. This is V1 of the plugin. Yeah. Actually, I'll tell David, though, because he's like really into making this work, so that was interesting. Nice. Any other questions about like, oh, nice.
So I'm still pretty new to Vault and I haven't gotten to play with it a lot, but I'm curious, like, what's preventing, like when you say Docker volume create, you give it the driver vault and you pass the policy rules as an option. Are those policy rules like in that Docker container? Like what's preventing you from going in there and like seeing all the policy rules and just changing them?
So I think that, and like I am no Vault expert. I also didn't even write this plugin, so what I say could definitely be wrong. But I think they have the concept of mounts, so you can mount as like with an ACL, and then that mount is actually the one that you're using in the container, and that could totally be wrong. Anything else? Yes.
When are you getting help? It seems like you need a whole team of help.
Yeah, so there is like a QA team on the commercial side at Docker, so I'm trying to get them to take over RCI and do the open source one too, because they're working on the CI for the commercial product, which I don't even know what that looks like. But they really like mine, and theirs is like nowhere as cool as mine. Okay, I mean, theirs is kind of cool, but like mine's way cooler. And like it grew over time. Like I didn't do that in a day. It was like we needed the ZFS server, so then we spin it up. So it's taken them a long time to like get their infrastructure to the level that ours is at. But once it is there, then I'm just gonna be like, there you go. In the beginning, like when they first like suggested the idea, I was like such a control freak over it though. But at this point, there have been so many problems. I'm like, fuck it, take it. Like it's all yours. It's your problem now. But honestly, when it works really well. But lately, we've just had some really interesting problems. And since we're now running tests for so many projects, it's just way too much to handle. Anything else? Okay. I don't know, it's weird because like I kind of like, there aren't that many really Linux desktop apps. I did try to put the new Slack one in a container and have not succeeded yet. There is this weird thing with like, I think they use the Atom like Chrome thing. Yeah, it's not really working well, but I also can't get it to run my host. So there's like a major problem there. So that's what I've recently tried. But there is that like Scud Cloud or whatever, which I don't even use, but I have it in a container. I make these containers and I don't even use them. So it also gets hard to maintain because people will actually use them and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I did not know. But yeah, like that, my Chrome right now is running in a container. I mean, obviously, like I don't run that shit in my host. Oh, what?
In a container.
Nice. Yeah, I've run like even Vagrant in a container. Yeah, I don't install that on my host either. VirtualBox container. I recently like nuked my entire computer and then like re-encrypted the disk and then reinstalled everything like just for fun. But yeah, so now it's like super clean. Like I have a ton of images and I still have like, I've only used like 50 gigabytes of drive. And like before I did all that, I just had like random shit I think left over from like, I don't even know what. It's just like these things keep me up at night and I like don't even know like what they are and it's so weird. But yeah.